So 2025 for the Indian stock market. On the surface, it looked like another fantastic year. But you know how headlines can be, right? They don't always tell the whole story. Today, we're going to dig into what really happened, and then we'll look ahead to what the big analysts are saying about 2026. All right, let's jump in.
I mean, look at that. A 10-year winning streak. That sounds amazing, no question. But the real question is, did every investor feel like a winner in 2025? Well, as we're about to see, the big shiny number at the top hides a much messier reality underneath.
Okay, so first things first, let's peel back the layers on this so-called bull run of 2025.
All right, let's start with the good stuff, the number you saw everywhere, the benchmark Nifty 50 index. It clocked in a solid 10% gain. And get this, that made it a full decade of positive returns year after year. I mean, from the outside looking in, things couldn't look better.
But, and this is a huge but, while the market was climbing, something really strange was happening behind the scenes. Foreign institutional investors, the FIIs, they were basically running for the door. They pulled out a jaw-dropping 1.58 lakh crore rupees. And let me be clear, this wasn't just a lot of money. It was the biggest single-year exit by foreign investors ever.
So that's the million-dollar question, right? How on earth does the market go up when a record amount of foreign money is flowing out? Well, it turned into this epic tug of war. For every foreign seller, there was a domestic buyer, our own institutional investors and retail folks stepping right in. They essentially absorbed all that selling and kept the market from tanking. It was pretty incredible to watch. Okay, so we've established the market went up, but who actually benefited? Because that 10% gain, yeah, it was definitely not spread around evenly.
And this is maybe the most important takeaway from 2025. The rally was incredibly narrow. It was really the big boys, the large cap stocks, the biggest companies in India that did all the work and outperformed. Meanwhile, if you were invested in mid-cap or small-cap stocks, you probably felt a lot of pressure. Your portfolio might have looked nothing like that flashy Nifty 50 number.
Now, if we dig into the sectors, there was one absolute superstar, banking. The Bank Nifty Index just crushed it, totally outperforming the broader market. And why? Simple. Really strong credit growth and fantastic earnings reports across the board. And then we had a surprise performer, one that kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people, the metal sector. Wow. The Indian Metal Index shot up by about 29%. This was really a perfect storm of government tariffs protecting domestic players and super strong global demand for commodities. But of course, where there are winners, there are also losers. And on the other side of that coin was the IT sector, which is usually so reliable, right? After an amazing run, it just hit a wall. A lot of investors decided to take profits off the table, and that was happening at the same time the global economy was looking a bit shaky, which, puts a damper on spending from international clients.
All right, let's pull back from the stock market for a second and look at the big picture. What were the major economic forces at play here? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle was the Indian rupee. By the end of 2025, it was sitting at nearly 90 rupees to the US dollar. That's its biggest annual drop in 3 years. Now think about it from a foreign investor's perspective. That currency drop eats away at any gains you made in the market when you convert it back to dollars. But a weak rupee is always that classic double-edged sword. On one hand, it's fantastic for our exporters. Think IT, pharma, it makes their stuff cheaper and more competitive on the world stage. But on the other hand, it's a real pain for anyone importing goods because it just makes everything more expensive. But here's the thing. Even with those currency headaches, the Indian economy itself, the actual engine, just kept chugging along. Our GDP growth was still one of the strongest in the world, mostly because we have such resilient demand right here at home. And that fundamental strength, it really helped prop up company earnings and put a safety net under the market. So that's the complicated, hidden story of 2025. Now for the fun part. What's on the horizon for 2026? Let's see what the experts are predicting. First up, we've got a huge vote of confidence from a global heavyweight. Goldman Sachs has put an overweight rating on India. They're basically saying, we're bullish. They're pointing to a comeback in corporate earnings and supportive government policies as the main reasons why. HSBC is doubling down on that optimism, and they're putting a number on it. They're calling for the BSE Sensex to hit nearly 94,000 by the end of 2026. Again, their whole thesis is built on the expectation of a much broader recovery in company earnings. And it's not just them. This bullish feeling is pretty much the consensus across the board. From the big global banks to our own domestic brokerages, just about everyone seems to be expecting more upside for Indian stocks this coming year.
Okay, so that's a lot of information. What does this all mean for you, the investor? How do you actually use this? Let's break it down into a simple strategy checklist for 2026.
All right, here's a simple four-step game plan. First, focus on quality. That means prioritizing companies where you can clearly see their earnings path. Second, keep a close eye on those growth sectors. We're talking financials, consumer goods, and infrastructure. Third, and this is crucial, mind your valuations. Don't get caught up in the hype and overpay for a stock, even if it's a great company. And finally, number four, manage your risk. If 2025 taught us anything, it's that diversification is still your absolute best friend, especially when the market gets narrow.
Look, 2025 was a real test of the Indian market's resilience. And yeah, the forecasts for 2026 look bright, but last year was the perfect reminder that the headlines don't tell you everything. So, as we head into this new year, the big question isn't whether you can predict the future. It's, are you prepared for it? Thanks for tuning in.